Hey, everybody, and welcome to another My JavaScript Story. This week, we're talking to Gil Tayar. Gil, do you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, now, you were on episode 341 of JavaScript Jabber. We talked about testing in JavaScript. And if I remember right, we dove into Selenium and a bunch of other tools. And if I also remember right, you work for Applitools in Israel. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct. It's a visual testing company. So my passion is testing, and somehow I landed at Applitools, which writes testing tools for developers and automation developers.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you want to bring up as far as an introduction, things that you're famous for or excited about or anything like that?
For my lasagna, I think I'm famous for my lasagna. No, let's just see where it's going, and I'll if I'll think of something, I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, I have a lasagna thing myself. I lived in Italy for 2 years as a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and when I came home, my mom liked my lasagna so much that I actually made 5 pans of lasagna for my brother's wedding dinner. So
nice, and it went well.
Yeah, it did.
Good.
Yeah,
I love lasagna. Well, my kids do.
Yeah, I put it together, and then she farmed it out to neighbors to cook it. So we didn't have enough oven space for all of them. This episode is sponsored by Sentry.io. Recently, I came across a great tool for tracking and monitoring problems in my apps. Then I asked them if they wanted to sponsor the show and allow me to share my experience with you. Sentry provides a terrific interface for keeping track of what's going on with my app. It also tracks releases so I can tell if what I deployed makes things better or worse. They give full stack traces and as much information as possible about the situation when the error occurred to help you track down the errors. Plus, one thing I love, you can customize the context provided by Sentry. So, if you're looking for specific information about the request, you can provide it. It automatically scrubs passwords and secure information, and you can customize the scrubbing as well. Finally, it has a user feedback system built in that you can use to get information from your users. Oh, and I also love that they support open source to the point where they actually open sourced Sentry if you want to self-host it. Use the code devchat at Sentry.io to get 2 months free on Sentry's small plan. That's code devchat at Sentry.io. Anyway, let's talk about you. Let's dive into your coding journey. How did you get into code?
It started roughly around 13 years old. My parents bought me. We're talking 80s here, like not even mid 80s, early 80s. My parents bought me a Sinclair ZX81. It had a full 1K of memory, not 1 megabyte, not 1 gigabyte, just 1K. And I could write little basic, programs on the chiclet keyboard. and I, very quickly I finished the memory, so we bought a 16K expansion. And that's how I learned BASIC. And then I got upgraded to an Apple II, and learned Pascal from with Turbo Pascal 1.0. And I was hooked. I loved it. I loved what I was doing. I loved it so much that I wanted to do it in the Army. I don't know if you know, but Army service is mandatory in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And well, if you're technically fit and very fit, then you become a soldier. But if you have like little disabilities, and I had open heart surgery when I was a kid, then you get to, choose a bit more. So I went to what is still called Mamram, which is the Army unit that works with computers. I did 9 months. Yeah, sorry. I did 9 months of training. That was 87.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody knew computers back then. I mean, the fact that I knew BASIC and Pascal was not regular. And so we had to learn from zero, like algorithms and all that stuff.
Right.
We did everything on the mainframe. Most of our training was on a mainframe PC. We learned, what was that language? PL1. And incredibly enough, after 9 months, they assign you to various Army units to continue work. And they wanted me to become an instructor for the same,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was like, no, but I want to work. I want to write code. And I don't want to be an instructor. It's boring. But they convinced me. And I think it was the best thing that happened to me in my life, because I got to do all sorts of fun stuff, whatever I wanted. I was building courses. There's this funny story. I had to choose. They told me, okay, there are all these kinds of subunits. Where do you want to go? And I said, I want to go to the PC, the PC unit of the instructor course. Mm-hmm. And they were like laughing. What do you mean you want to go to PC? Mainframes are the future. The mini computers are the future.
Yes, they were the future until they weren't.
No, yeah, exactly. PCs, that's for games and spreadsheets and DOS. I said, no, I believe, it's amazing. I believe in the PC. And I think, it will be the biggest thing ever, and mainframes will disappear. That was 87. That was amazing. And it was true. I'm a prophet. So I did everything there. I mean, I learned and taught C, C++. Windows was starting to come along. So we taught Windows and all that stuff. So that was basically the beginning of my journey. Through the army, like lots of people in Israel. But the fact that I did whatever I wanted there and taught, which I still love to do, made it a little bit quirky and fun. Yep. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I've talked to a few Israelis, and yeah, they've all mentioned that, well, not all of them, but a lot of them have mentioned that, yeah, you have the mandatory military service.
And if you've read Startup Nation, one of the biggest reasons that Israel is like, a nation of startups, and it is true statistically, and is the army. We had a huge cadre of people, of developers, doing computer stuff before it became, widespread and everything. And part of the computer stuff was like really, really interesting because it was like military intelligence and stuff. And so the people that came out of that did things like firewalls. The first firewall was Checkpoint, which is an Israeli company, and stuff like that. So yeah, a huge part of the success is due to the fact that the military used computers.
Startup Nation?
Yep, it's a wonderful book. It talks about the startup culture in Israel and how it came about. And if I don't know if it's still true, but it was true like 5 or 10 years ago. If you look at all the countries in the world, then after the US, Israel is the biggest. It has the biggest maybe investment in the number of startups or the number of people working in. And even if you take the US and split it into California and New York and all the 50 countries, we're still number 2 after California.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's huge. A lot of people don't know that, but startup culture and software development is really, really big in Israel.
That's awesome. I've also noticed that at the conferences and stuff, a lot of the sponsors are from companies that are based in Israel.
Which again comes from the fact that, a lot of startups are Israeli. Yep.
Huh. I'll have to check that book out. But yeah, it's really, really interesting. Yeah. So you're in the army or in the military. I don't know how, because we have 4 branches of the military here in the US.
Right. No, it's just.
I don't know if there's a distinction or if it's just, hey, it's the army.
No, it's the whole thing.
Yeah. But yeah, so you're in the army. You're teaching people how to use computers. Did you make a career out of that before moving to the private sector, or did you just kind of serve your time and then?
I served my time. It was like 6 years, and then left and started working like work, not software developing code, and not doing instructions and training. That came really, really later in my Wix days when I started not so much teaching, but giving talks and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But wherever there was a stage, wherever I could do something, I was like immediately there and talking and explaining and everything. It's something that I really, really love.
Yep. Yeah, and I think we've had a few people on from Wix too, and I think most of them have been from Israel. So,
yep, Wix is a big company in Israel. It's well known here, and their culture is an interesting one. It's like this crazy company, but they're doing really cool stuff, and they have good engineering, really, really good engineering. I learned a lot there, a lot.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, they run a whole bunch of websites for people. And
yep, it's a website where you can go in and build websites for yourself. I call it PowerPoint for websites.
Mm-hmm.
Or
that's a good way of putting it.
You just build it using drag and drop and all that. I spent through. I think we'll get to that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we will.
Okay.
What were you doing in the private sector though?
So yeah, I spent like 4 years in a company called Magic. There was this huge boom of tools that basically disappeared. Not really sure why. And they were called fourth generation languages. It was like this weird, and the idea is all the applications look the same. You know, most of the regular applications, you know, tables and you select and you delete CRUD applications. There's not a lot of. Why not build a tool that will help you build those applications in a more and not need to write code? That was the idea. Magic was huge back in its days. It was called Magic. They still have a following, I think, in Japan and other places. And I spent there 4 years building their next gen tool. I learned a lot about what they wanted to do was it was running under DOS, which was the operating system at the time, and they wanted to port it to Windows. And the CTO or something like that decided to rewrite the whole thing. Yeah, we're going to rewrite it, everything. We're going to we spent 4 years.
That always goes well. Yeah.
Oh, man. I think Joe Spolsky has a whole thing about it. We spent 4 years on that really, really interesting project. Nothing came out of it after 4 years. I think it was 5 years, but after 4 years, I left. Finally, when they understood that nothing is going to come out of a rewrite, they took the original team and like in half a year, they hacked out a solution from the existing code. And they lost the game. They lost it to Visual Basic. Those 4 years were crucial. And Visual Basic came out, and then everybody switched to it because they wanted Windows. And they lost the game to Windows. And I learned never, ever, ever rewrite something. Just do it incrementally.
Yeah, I got a boss really mad at me one time because we went in and said, but we'd only been working on the app for 7 months, and we were like, we could probably move faster now that we know what we're doing. We just rewrite this thing.
Yeah, and I think that if in 4 years you still have some parts of the code that you had 4 years ago, that's also a problem. I mean, you need to constantly refactor and change and adapt and learn stuff. I was spending the last 3 days rewriting a whole microservice because I understood a lot more about it, and I needed to add something to it, and that addition was like going to be really, really awkward. So I rewrote the whole thing. I refactored it. Do it piecemeal wise, that's great. Do it in one big bang, never.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think we would have been well served to just refactor the pieces that
were shitty. Yep. So that was Magic. 4 wonderful years. Again, I learned a lot. I was C++. First time I coded in C++. And then there was this, it's long. I mean, I'm 30 years in this industry. And then there was this really cool .com. It was like the height of .com back then, 90 something. Mm-hmm. Really cool company that did 3D stuff. There were lots of designers and artists in the company, and I was like totally hooked because I love this kind of thing. I spent 2 years there doing cool 3D stuff in C++ and Direct 3D until finally I understood that the CEO doesn't really know what they want to do.
I've been there before too.
but it was the .com era. So they poured money at him like crazy, even though he had no idea what to do with the money. So we spent 2 wonderful years, and I made lots of wonderful friends there. But nothing came out of it. But one thing did come out of it. A friend of mine from the Magic days and from the other company days, it was the .com boom. He said, "Hey, let's create a company." And yeah, in 2000, I founded a startup along with that guy, Elon Reschers, who is now the CTO of Gong, CTO and co-founder of Gong, which is a really cool company. You should check it out. They read and analyze phone calls, sales phone calls, and support phone calls, and do all sorts of fun stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. I created Web Collage along with Elon, and spent like 12 years building a company from the ground up. It was wow. It was a journey. I learned one thing. One big thing I did learn. I don't like it. I don't like managing and doing the business stuff. Not even managing a team. I can do it. I can do it okay. But at heart, I am a developer. I like coding. I like the professional, the side of it, the technical side of it, and not so much the business or the managerial aspects of it.
Oh, right.
So yeah, from that point on, it's just straight development. Even as a team leader, I was like hesitant. Yeah, I can lead a team of like 2 or 3, but more than that, find someone else. I want to go back to writing code. I really love it. It's fun. Web Collage was like the early days. It was 2000. We wanted to write a reverse proxy. A reverse proxy which did stuff on HTML pages. It transformed HTML pages from one thing to another, and it had to be really fast. And software that days was hardware that days was really slow. So we wrote it in C++. Java wasn't an option back then, and for performance reasons. But there was nothing. We had to open the connections ourselves. We had to parse the HTTP headers ourselves, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So we wrote the whole stack. I learned a lot about the web and HTTP. And that was my first encounter with JavaScript. It was JavaScript on Netscape 4, if somebody remembers that. I think it was like JavaScript 1.0 or 1.1. It was a really, really bad language back then. I think it's wonderful now, but it was really bad. It had nothing. But something in the syntax, something in the fact that it was like just functions, nothing more, caught my eye. It was like, hey, this whole functional thing is cool. Why do I need to do, all these classes and members and interfaces and abstract functions and all that thinking when I can just use functions? It was like, there's something there.
Yep.
But it was really bad.
Yeah.
And back in the days.
So what made you get into JavaScript then? Like, what made you fully transition that way?
It started with I was from C++, we transitioned to Java, and it's all static typing. Right. But then the next company was CloudShare, and there I encountered Python. It was the first dynamic language that I really wrote code in. Not like it's little bits of code, but full application. And something in me like clicked with the whole idea of, oh man, don't. We were in the Java days, we would spend time discussing the types and the classes and who inherits from who and what is the right interface and what is the wrong interface. And then in Python, you just write the code and you pass data around. You don't pass objects. You basically pass data structures like dictionaries and numbers, etc. And that was like a revelation. It was like, oh, this is simple. I'm not sure why I did the whole thinking about types thing, which led me to Wix, which was the next company. And there, I was an architect back then, and we were thinking about this idea of now it's called Wix Code. Wix Code is the ability to write code back end and front end in the Wix site. So we needed a place that we needed to take the front end code that the user writes and transform it, but Babelize it, etc., and then a place where the user could write back end code and have it run. So the obvious thing was to use Node.js.
Right.
And I took Node.js, and I was like a Scala developer back then. I took Node.js and I wrote a POC in 3 days.
POC?
It was like, a proof of concept. It was like I have 3 or 4 days before my 2-week Thailand vacation. I don't exactly know what to do because that's how Wix works a lot of times. So yeah, I'll write a proof of concept. Let's. I didn't know Node.js, and I knew JavaScript like in basic terms, and boom, like after 2 days it worked. And that was my first real encounter with JavaScript. And from then on, it's like JavaScript all the time.
Nice.
Yep.
So what kinds of things have you done with JavaScript that you're proud of or you think are interesting that people would be interested to hear about?
So Wix Code is bizarre. I'm really proud of that project, but it's out. It's not mainstream. I think the thing I am most proud of is what I'm doing right now in Applitools. Oh, by the way, you know what? In Wix, I spent half a year, a bit more, doing the front-end code. This was my first time doing front-end code with React and Redux and all that. And I was writing, we were talking about how do we write the front-end code. It was a greenfield project. We had 0 code, and we had to go all the way. And my big question, I love testing, was, okay, how do we test it? And I'm really proud of building, the methodology which is used up to today at Wix Code in the front end of how to do front-end testing. And I still believe in that methodology today, how to do unit, how to do, we talked a lot about it. Yeah, how to do it. And I'm really proud of it. I invented, using JS DOM and integration tests. I didn't know that, it was something that was starting to become a thing. So I invented it in my, there's air quotes there. And I'm really proud of that piece because I think I did it correctly. And I still use it whenever I write front-end code. So yeah, that's one thing I'm proud of. But what I'm particularly proud of is my work at Applitools. I came here to Applitools, and the CTO, Adam, told me, we have this new product that we want to build. It's called the Visual Grid. And the idea is you run a grid of browsers, Chrome, Firefox, IE, Safari, etc., on the servers, and we send what we call snapshots, of a page, and you render those snapshots in Chrome and in Firefox and IE, etc., etc., etc. So the Visual Grid is basically something that gets rendering jobs and renders them across all kinds of browsers so that a user can run the test once and yet get screenshots of all their pages. Even if they run the test once on Chrome, they'll get screenshots of Chrome or Firefox and of different responsive widths, so iPad width and iPhone width, etc., etc., etc. And he said, yeah, well, I told him, okay, what do you write? And he said, .NET. I said, oh, do I have to write .NET? He said, no, go ahead, do whatever you want. And I said, I want...
Nice.
Yeah, do whatever you want. I said, yeah, okay, Node.js Kubernetes. He said, sure, I don't know what that is, but sure. No, he knew. But he didn't have experience with it. And for 8 months, I was working alone on that project, just doing my thing. And writing that whole product. After 8 months, another developer joined me, so now we're like a team of 2. But those 8 months were the whole thing is running now in production, and it's running well, problems here and there, but basically flawlessly. And it's all in Node.js, all in Kubernetes, all using the methodologies of testing and deployment that I preached for, but never got to practice, and now I'm practicing them, and they work. So yeah, that is my biggest accomplishment, I think, in my career.
Nice. Yeah, Kubernetes is something that I wanted to spend a little more time learning, but I haven't been able to prioritize it. So.
Yep, it's a wonderful tool. It's like if I go back to my web collage days, like early 2000, thinking of building such an infrastructure without a team of system administrators, now called DevOps, was crazy. Now I don't have a system administrator. I just do it on my own, and the enabler is one, the cloud, okay. And two, Kubernetes, which just enables me to deploy with 3 files, and boom, I get to deploy whatever I want, how many Docker containers I want, and it just works. It's amazing technology, and very, after you get over the hump, there's a hump, a learning hump. It's very, very easy to use.
Yeah, it looks and sounds awesome.
It is. Yep. One more thing I've been working on. One of my, I'm a big believer in monorepos, and I really wanted.
There's a debate that's been had.
Oh yeah, which is probably why I'm a fan.
Okay.
And we started working like that at Wix at Wix Code, but I really wanted to bring this to a thing to be really complete. And so I decided, okay, the visual grid and any project that will be Node.js later is going to be a monorepo. And I did it, and I have today, we have about 80 packages, NPM packages inside them, and it's all based on NPM, or the whole, everything is communicating via NPM. So all packages are independent of one another. They're just linking to one another using NPM. And the whole thing is amazingly enough working. But the problem is that there is no good build tool that builds a monorepos. If you look at Circle and all that, they assume that one package equals one repository, or one microservice equals one. They don't have the concept of, here's a whole monorepo. I did changes in this and this and this package. Could you please build this to me? And could you build it so that the dependency graph makes sense? So build it in the correct order.
Yeah.
They don't know how to do that, unfortunately. And so I built a tool, and it's called Built. It's open source. It's not yet fully complete. We're doing semi-manual build processes right now, but once it's complete, I think I don't know. I hope it'll change people's thinking around monorepos. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. I know that Google operates out of a monorepo. I think Angular and a few of the other, they kind of have their own repos, but
right, Babel, React, yep.
Yeah, a lot of those operate out of a monorepo. So, I did Ruby on Rails for a long time. Well, I still do Ruby on Rails, but yeah, they also, all of their core libraries are in a monorepo.
Right. Oh, Ruby also?
Yeah, Ruby on Rails. So Active Record and all of the different libraries that make it up. The core ones that are maintained by the Rails core team are all in the Rails repo. And they all have their own folder.
Right. Nice. Yeah.
Hopefully, approach, it does work. It's just,
it's not there. The tooling isn't totally there yet.
Yeah.
I mean, Visual Code is all there. They have the concept of workspaces and projects, and that's exactly what I need. What we need. So in terms of editing, it's all there. NPM, mostly there. NPM link is a bit of a, but they're working on it. But the worst is the build tools. Nothing there.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, cool. Well, people should definitely keep an eye out on that. Anything else you're working on that you want to talk about?
Nope. All my eyes are towards the Visual Grid. We're working on IE support and in the future maybe Safari support. So it's a whole thing. Firefox and Chrome are easy. Not really easy, but because they can be headless in a Docker container. But
Right.
IE is, it's Windows. So VMs and dealing with VMs is not as fun as dealing with Docker containers.
Now, when
But
you say IE, are you including Edge in that, or?
that's a big question. I'm telling my CTO, nah, come on. It just is, it's dead. It's Chromium. It's going to be Chromium. So we've got that covered. And he says, no. We need Edge support. So I said, okay. Yeah. So yes, it will include Edge, the current Edge, and all future Edges probably.
Right.
Yep.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and do some picks then. You have some picks, things you want to shout out about?
I do. Things I love, the things I've done lately. First of all, there are two amazing YouTube series, which in 2014, it was like 100 years, in like 1914 to 2014 for the World War I. So this company of people, amazing people, they did a week-by-week reconstruction of World War I. So every week you get a 10-minute episode which recounts that week in World War I.
That sounds awesome.
So 4 years I've been, working on, listening to what's going on in World War I. It's an amazing way to learn history. Now I know World War I. I understand it. I understand the processes and what happened there. Amazing. So that's called the Great War. And once the Great War ended, they started in September 2018 with World War II, because it's not exactly 100 years, definitely not 100 years, but at least it's the correct months. So September 1st, Germany invaded Poland, and the same goes. And now we're working week by week on World War II, and it's absolutely fabulous. It's called World War II. You can find it in YouTube, and the guy there, Indy Nidell, I think, I don't remember, Indy something, is a wonderful presenter, and he does the whole research along with a small team of people. So I absolutely recommend it to history buffs, and I'm not a history buff, so also to people that think it's just 10 minutes a week. It's wonderful.
Yeah, my wife really enjoys, and I don't know why, but anyway, she's really into World War II documentaries and stuff. So I might have to ruin her on that.
yeah. She should. It's really, really good. My son, he's 18. He recommended a TV series called Peaky Blinders. It's immediately after World War I, which is strange because I said, nah, I'm not going to see a historical TV series, but it is good. It's based in England, and it's about the mob, the Irish mob in England, and
interesting.
Lots of stuff. Really, really good, especially the first season. So Peaky Blinders is 5 stars for me. And I'm an avid reader. I read a lot, especially now that the kids are bigger. There's this Norwegian writer called Karl Ove Knausgaard, and he's written 6 books, which horribly, and I'm Jewish, are called Mein Kampf, which it seems is in Norwegian for my struggle. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit of but the books are wonderfully sensitive and wonderfully human. So I absolve them of the sin, and they're amazing. They're like this big. They're huge. So it took me like 2 years to go through the 6 of them, but I really, really, really love them. So those are my picks, I think.
Nice. If you put links to those in the chat, then I will make sure they get in the show notes. I'm going to jump in here with a few picks of my own. one pick that I have, and this is something that I've been listening to for a while. I'm sure I've picked it on these shows before, but there are a couple of podcasts that I've kind of been binge listening to for the last few months. One of them is called the MF CEO Project. And I try and maintain a clean rating, so I'm not going to tell you what MF stands for. I'm sure you can figure that out. The M stands for mother. The F stands for something that doesn't go in a clean rated show. But anyway, it's an entrepreneur named Andy Frisella, and he just talks about how to be successful and how to not make excuses for yourself and things like that. Really, really terrific.
Cool.
He does curse a bit, so if that bothers you, then don't listen to the show. But I've really enjoyed the show. Another one is the Ask Gary V show. That's Gary Vaynerchuk's show. He just answers questions. I think it's on iTunes now as the Gary V audio experience or something like that. They're also on YouTube, so you can go pick them up there. But yeah, good stuff. I've really enjoyed those. And what I tend to do is I tend to listen to those. So I'll listen to a month's worth of those. So whatever got released in that month. And then I'll go listen to an audiobook on Audible, and then I'll come back. And nice. I have a few other shows that I stay current on, but these are ones that I've been listening to backlog on. So I think I've listened to 3 or 4 years worth of their shows so far, both of them. And yeah, so I just finished December of 2016 for both of those shows. So yeah, now I'm listening to a book, and I'm going to pick the book, even though I'm not that far into it, and I don't know if it's a great book or not, but it's kind of a classic book. It's A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. And yeah, I actually, funny enough, I picked up that book because there were people out there that were saying, don't read that, read this because it's better. And that kind of stuff, don't do this. That's like a dare for me. So so I was like, okay, so why are you telling me not to read it? So I went and I've listened to the first half hour of it. And what's really fun is that I lived in Italy for 2 years. I think I mentioned that at the start of the show. But so they're talking, because it takes place in Italy. And I didn't realize that when I picked it up, funny enough. But yeah, so they're talking about heading into Udine or going over to Gorizia and things like that. And these are all places that I've been. So yeah, people are probably going, why would you ever go to Udine? I don't know. There's not a whole lot there, but anyway. So that was fun. That's been kind of fun for me. And it's definitely an interesting look at, I think it takes place like right at the end of World War I. So it's been kind of an interesting historical journey. And one thing that I found looking at history or looking at politics or looking at a lot of these things is that there's more to the story. So when we hear an issue boiled down to you hate people like this, or you just don't have empathy for this situation, as you dig in, there's definitely that element of empathy on the one side, but there's more to the story. And the people who oppose it, they're not empathetic. They're just looking at a different part of the story. And so as you get more pieces of the facts, what you really find out is that there isn't a great answer to this, but, we've been polarized by the news media that we consume or the people we listen to into camps, and the reality is somewhere in the middle. So anyway, that's one of the reasons why I enjoy, some of the historical stuff, because then it's like, okay, so what's the context around that? And then you learn something about humanity. So anyway.
Have you heard of, there's a site, I think, discussing if Hemingway wrote JavaScript, where it shows JavaScript as written by Hemingway and by, James Joyce and by all these other authors in their own style. It's really funny.
I'll have to check that out too.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is my first Hemingway too, so. All right. Well, if people want to find you online, Gil, where do they go?
Twitter. I'm mostly on Twitter. My handle is like my name. It's Gil Tayar, Tayar. I'm mostly there. Feel free to DM me. My DMs are open for a tweet or whatever. I'd love to chat.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks for coming, Gil.
Thank you. It was fun.
It was fun. All right. We'll talk later on. Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CacheFly.com to learn more.